Well, here we are on not the 1st of April, but the 2nd of April, thank God. So I'm not saying April Fool when I say we're going to join Pat McGart. How are you this sunlit morning, Pat?
Morning, Jude. It's God. There is a God this morning. There's a beautiful morning here. Might be a wee bit cold yet, but the sun is splitting the rocks here,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful Donegal day.
And it's cold day. Well, it's same here. It's cold, but it doesn't have that wind that we had over the last couple of days.
Apparently we're going to get a very temperature,
Oh.
some a balmy 15 degrees or something today, which would be nice.
But we're going to pay for it on Sunday. There's going to be all
apparently a blizzard, but hey, just take the day as you find it and worry about Sunday and Sunday.
Come day, go day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we're going to deal with what it says in the papers and says in the various media forums. And there's one subject which has been exercising both Nolan and Talkback and everything else you want to mention. The Irish News, newsletter, a lot. And that is the Bobby Story story and whether Sinn Féin should have been prosecuted. Now, they set up an independent group, commission, whatever, to investigate it. And they came back with the finding that no, that the Shinners hadn't broken any law and they weren't going to prosecute them. Arlene Foster says, Simon, whatever his name is, I'm going to say Coveney. Simon Byrne will have to go. The chief constable will have to go, and that's all about it. We cannot have this stand. And now the public prosecution service has said, oh, well, we'll look at this again. They had brought in a finding too that there was nothing, no charge to answer. But now they said they'll look at it again. Do you see this as a dangerous point or a crisis point, that, as some people are suggesting, Pat?
Absolutely, Jude. I don't think the Shinners come out of this with their the hands completely clean at all. I think they ballsed up totally at the actual thing. I'm getting this out of the way at the start because people accuse you what I'm going to say afterwards.
Well, why do you say they ballsed up in the first place?
Well, I think there were transgressions, and if Michelle O'Neill had to say, "Look, wait a minute, this was a funeral. We organised it. We liaised with the police. We tried to do everything above board. There are certain things happened that shouldn't have happened. We apologise for them." She said that at the time, just sort of said, "Look, I headed it off at the pass." What has happened since Jude has become a joke, because here's what's happened. There's a guy on the other morning, and I think on Talkback, he said the chief constable is going to have to resign. The deputy chief constable is going to have to resign. The director of the PPS is going to have to resign, and Michelle O'Neill is going to have to resign. Right? If we follow that logic, okay. And here's the thing: this was set up by the PPS. Looked at this, gave it due consideration, brought in a senior counsel, an outside senior independent, to look at it, and they came to this conclusion. So if the DUP and the unionist community are now turning around and say, because this doesn't suit us, we're going to bring this down. Well, okay, that's fine. Just remember, but the next time when something happens, if the Sinn Féin and the nationalist community want to pull this stunt after, just because you disagree with something doesn't mean that it's wrong. And when you have the EUP, the DUP, and the TUV all calling for this man to go, but I know there's one, and with the SDLP, I find out their position. I would like to know how it's playing with their own supporters and the nationalist community. Now, I can understand their point, and I heard Nicola Malin yesterday that she is saying, she made a fair point. She said that there were lots of other funerals which, in her opinion, people had obeyed the rules on the day, and those people are feeling hard done by. Now, the other side of the story, I heard Amanda Ferguson. I read Amanda Ferguson, the journalist. She had talked to any number of people, and she says she has yet to come across one who feels annoyed about it in the least. So I don't know, you take that. But the bottom line of it all, Jude, here's what I'm trying to say. And I know, I think Mervyn Story let it out of the bag yesterday. He says the police had facilitated the most prolific display by Republicans to glorify an IRA man. I think when you drop it all away, that's really what this is about. It's the old tribal thing. The Republicans give a big funeral to an IRA man, Bobby Story, and that's what. If the unions were really serious they would have gone bananas about the Ranger supporters up the Shankill Road in the same way.
Well, Pat, you say that they had questions to answer at the, you know, in the way that they conducted the funeral. Precisely what are you referring to there?
Well, Jude, I think, you know, there was photographs of Michelle O'Neill shaking hands with people.
So
and stuff.
Those selfies, that's right. That breached
the selfies. And, you know,
anything else?
No, not too much else. And there was more people there than according to the regulations. No, the sinners themselves would say they were not responsible for that. No, the answer, the problem with that is hey, I was up on social media and so on, and they had a fair idea that people would show up. Now, they were not directly responsible for that. But I think had they turned around, Michelle O'Neill said, look, what we were responsible for was done properly. Anything that went wrong afterwards, while we weren't directly, I apologize sincerely for that, and it shouldn't have happened. And we intended to stay within the rules. I think that would have been enough at the time. But now it's turned into this political football. And Jude, let's be serious about this. It strikes me that a lot of it is as purely sort of sectarian. You know, one side, you know, it's one side having a go at the other side, and is it really about sort of the funeral at all, you know, or the pandemic at all?
Yeah, I think it is left at, well, if it ever was at that, I think it is left that. To me, there's no doubt that the thing that really sticks in the craw of unionism, and we have all the unionist forces, TUV, UUP, and DUP, all lined up against this. What annoys them is, of course, as you say, that Bobby Sturry was a leading Republican IRA man, and they give him this was a huge sort of gesture of the solidarity of the community behind him, with all these hundreds of guys dressed in black and white. So that they really resented that. But it does strike me as a bit ironic that Arlene Foster and others are calling for the resignation of the Chief Constable, as you say, Michelle O'Neill, etc., etc. But whenever there was the arrest of the guy in the Ormeau Road over the bookies thing, I don't remember Arlene speaking out at all about that, or saying anything critical of the Chief Constable or the PSNI for arresting the one person who was a victim and who that was only arrest that occurred with regard to the Ormeau Road. It's simply sort of daft, really. If they were to succeed in firing the Chief Constable, if they were to succeed in seeing the PPS change, I think nationalists, certainly Republicans, would be outraged, because they would say, you look at what you've done. You've upturned the entire sort of legal system because you didn't like the verdict, and you ignored something which clearly was shocking, that the guy who had been a victim at the Ormeau Road shooting still has a bullet in his guts, and he's hauled off to jail.
Yeah, Jude, that's how the Nationals, that's how every Nationals is looking. If the DUP succeed in getting Alan or Simon Burnside and the verdict of the PPS overturned, they're already right. Look at what's already happened. The PPS, it's getting reviewed, and they're bringing in the inspector of Her Majesty's Constabulary to look at policing. So, in other words, the DUP didn't like something, so already the whole thing's been so much for the independence of policing and oversight. You know, so let's get this clear: if the DUP pull this off, the message coming to the nationalist community is very clear. And by the way, I think a lot of nationalists are sitting and watching this and saying, "Wait a minute, no, a lot of this is about it's the old days when the unions didn't get their way, they ranted and raved, and they're doing it again." And already see how quick the tail has been turned.
I thought there was some sort of, you know, the way that they separate church and state in terms of the state operates. I thought there was some sort of gap between politicians and people like the PSNI and the Chief Constable or the Public Prosecution Service. Is there not supposed to be some kind of gap between them?
Well, there's supposed to be, but it's quite obvious there isn't.
They're leaning
on them, of course. They didn't get the verdict they want.
Yeah.
Jude, so much. When you consider this is supposed to be, apparently the PPS brought in a senior counsel as an independent oversight to have a look at it, and they came to this conclusion. Now, and it's quite obvious that Jude, if this was England, it'd be over. If it was the Republic of Ireland, you would think it'd be over as well. But because it's like, if you bring in a decision, you mightn't like it, but that's supposed to be the way it's done. And the PPS give an 8-page document explaining their decision, which was unusual as well. But because it it doesn't meet the political needs. But Jude, let's get this clear too. There's another part of it here. This is brilliant deflection from the anger is really about the Brexit and about the protocol and all the rest. So for the DUP, this is manna from heaven.
Something to keep the troops happy and at the same time keep the focus away from the really important thing. But I think they've actually touched on something that could really rebound very seriously, because don't forget, none of us could possibly forget that the police service, the police force, the RUC, was at the heart of the beginning of the Troubles.
Yeah.
In other words,
Jude, I'm going to make a point. Exactly, Jude. I'll make a point. If they succeed, sorry, I'm for cutting across you.
All right.
Because based on your point, see if they bring this down, I think the implications for the nationalist community, I think the days of storming will be very, very short if they succeed in this.
I think so. I have a notion that this review, which the PPS seemed to me rather absurdly agreed to, they're going to look at the whole thing again. That seems to me to be reacting and responding and following orders sort of thing from the unionist politicians. I think that's regrettable, let's say the least. One question is this: what is the position of the Alliance Party and what is the position of the SDLP on this whole matter? Do you know?
Well, I listened to Nicola Mahon yesterday. The SDLP were basically singing of the same hymn sheet as the UUP and the I think the Alliance guy, Stephen Farry, I'm not 100% certain. He said they were going to hold fire and wait till the report came in.
The report's in.
Yeah, no, whatever this His
Majesty's.
The next report. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about the last one?
I'm not 100% certain. I can't really answer that. But Nicola Mahon,
that sounds very like the Alliance Party in general. You're not sure what exactly.
No, but I just didn't hear. No, I need to be fair to them. But here's the point. The one thing that does strike me is I have only seen one person come on in my circle supporting the SDLP in this. Now, he's a rabid SDLP guy. Now, I've seen a former SDLP guy going bananas last night on social media about Nicola Mahon aligning herself with the DUP in this. So I would love to know, hey, Jude, let's be honest. See, a lot of nationals are sitting saying here, like, wait a minute, we mightn't agree. Even people who are not Sinn Féin supporters who said, hey, look, wait a minute, they balled this up and they shouldn't have done it. And there was a wee bit of arrogance in there, Jude. A lot of people think that. But if you're seriously thinking what's going on but with the DUP and Jim Allister and all the rest of it, and hauling the PSNI and the PPS over because they didn't like someone, if you think that goes down well in the nationalist community, I think, I remember I used to sit and watch SDLP in Derry, and I used to figure half the time they spent more time attacking their own side, namely, the national community people like and Sinn Féin, rather than they ever did the unionists. That used to bug me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's going on forever. But I mean, you wouldn't expect them to feel particularly warm towards the Shinners, given the fact that the Shinners did what they said they'd do. They overtook them and became the major party of nationalism in the North. Again, I think that it's more profound in a way than the actual incident or the event of Bobby Story's funeral. I think it has implications. If they were to be, as you say, successful, it would, a lot of people, I think nationalists would throw their hands up and say, look, this is pointless. There's no point. This isn't going to work.
To get back to your point originally, which is, I think it's the most important one. Policing was at the very core of the Troubles, the start of the Troubles. In early 60s, 93% of the RUC was Protestant and Unionist. And it's sort of a balkanized version, the Serbs and all the rest, and the Croats. You can't have one community being ruled over totally by the other. And that sort of hegemonic thing that we rule everything and you have nothing. Do that and see if it turns out this. In other words, they didn't accept a decision from the PPS service who brought in a senior counsel and they didn't accept the ruling against the chief constable or anything else. If this all can be overruled at the behest of unionism, I think the message is going out very, very clearly. We're in serious trouble here, because the next time something happens, what happens then?
Yeah, I wonder what people are thinking of the SDLP stand in this, because I'm presuming that they are objecting also to the finding of that independent inquiry into the whole matter. They're objecting to the finding as well as the funeral that was held.
Well, they don't seem to accept it, Jude. Put it like that.
Really, just like the unionists, they're saying we don't accept this independent inquiry's verdict.
Well, that's what else can you read into? I listened to Nicola Mallon yesterday, and I don't think there was any acknowledgement by her that they reported. She basically said that as far as I remember, she said very clearly that she condemned the funeral, what had occurred, and she seemed to be singing from the same hymn sheet as the DUP and the UUP.
Well, I could see her. I could accept the fact she might object to the funeral, the way the funeral was conducted, although again there's room for difference of opinion there. But I'm wondering about her objecting to the findings of the independent inquiry.
Well, Jude, I don't remember saying. I don't remember. Jude, I am definitely open for correction this, but I don't recall her saying at any stage in that contribution I heard yesterday, I accept totally the findings of the independent, the PPS. Well, I don't recall that. Do you?
No, I don't know. Well, I didn't really hear, actually. I was just going around secondhand reports of it. It does seem to me that they're playing, presumably they see their base, SDLP believes that their base will approve of the stand they're taking. So I suppose the line is, if there's any way you can get a kick at the shitters, kick them, regardless of the sort of merits of the case or even logic. I wonder, does the DUP believe that its base is approving of what they're doing? I would say almost certainly yes.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Which is, again, depressing. Well, a final question then. What about the Sinn Féin base? Because when I did a couple of blogs on this, I had any number of people coming on and saying, there are really no more apologies. No more apologies. We're fed up with this. And in fact, they're coming much more hardline than Michelle O'Neill or any of the Sinn Féin people.
Yeah, Jude, know what a lot of people are saying, and I think there is. The arrest of the people at the Sean Graham's memorial. The only person arrested was a young fella, as you mentioned earlier on, who actually still has a bullet on him.
Well, and he's not young now.
And he's not young now, but he was young then. I think that sent a message out big time. There's been a loyalist funeral in East Belfast, no arrests. Thousands came onto the Shankill Road, no arrests. In fact, they were sort of the messages of congratulations were sent to them. Now you shouldn't be out, but it's a great day. I know, we understand, and so all the rest. And it's the hypocrisy, I think, it's getting it here that a lot of people, and Jude, see that national people are sitting. There's no doubt about it. Nationals are seething that a big row has been made of this. It's the sort of the double standards and the hypocrisy. If this was about the pandemic and COVID and breaking the guidelines, why weren't all those guys in Shankill Road arrested? Why weren't there was what about the loyalist funeral? But here the Mervyn story let the cat out of the bag. But he said the police had facilitated Republicans giving a glorifying a funeral to an IRA guy. And Jude, let's be honest, I think that's really, if you strip all away, that's really what this is about.
That's at the heart of it. A lot of people too. Well, some people have mentioned the fact that besides the Ormeau Road bookies affair. There is a question of Arlene in the RHI. There is a question of Ian Paisley Jr. and his 5-star holidays. There are questions about NAMA, which were never resolved. So there's a whole lot of skeletons rattling in unionist cupboards, which somehow or another, nationalists and Republicans just appear to accept. Whereas with this, it's all hands to the pump to sack anybody that disagrees with them. I think they're on a very dangerous path. My guess is, and I hope I'm right, that this is a kind of a sop to Arlene, that they had put so much faith in the fact that they would get a conviction and get a few heads to roll. and they didn't get them, that by saying we'll have a review, that they're hoping that'll take the heat out of it, kick the can down the road, and that after a while, you know, some minor ticking off of people in the revised version, and the whole thing will blow over. But let's hope so. Let's hope so, because if it doesn't, there's going to be negative progress. Would that be the word? Backsliding rather than forward sliding. Okay. Let's go on to another matter, which is very, very important here, as we know, and that is flag waving. God, how we love to wave those old flags.
No, Jude, it was you brought this one up, but I think it's brilliant. Boris Johnson has brought in this bill in Britain where he wants the flag to be fly 24/7, but in one proviso, except in Northern Ireland. Jude, I travelled from where was it, Blackpool years ago, up to was it John O'Groats? What do you call the one up in the north? John, or is that Land's End? I can never remember.
I can never.
John O'Groats, I think it is. John O'Groats, way up at the top, something like 300 or 400 miles. We were down at the Lake District and we drove all the way up. Spent 2 days traveling. I did not see one single flag, Union flag, the whole, we came back into Larne, and I came out at Larne. This is about 20 years ago, and I met all the way back to Donegal, flags, Union Jacks all the way. Now, it was around about July, I have to admit, or well, before July, I think it's June. But anyway, they must have been getting ready. But I remember thinking to myself, here I've driven, 300 or 400 miles and on mainland Britain, and not a sign of a flag, and come back here. But I had a laugh, and I discovered that Johnson, Jude, the whole thing about Johnson, I'm jumping around a wee bit here, but there's something very wrong when you wrap the flag around yourself all the time. Is that a sign of some sort of, you need a comfort blanket?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you want people to look at something vague like that and not look at important matters that are actually happening, like Brexit. To be fair, it's not just unionists who wave flags. I remember when there was some talk about the need to bring in more unionists for the GAA, and it seems absurd that there isn't more, or Protestants, if you want to call them that, and suggesting that we should be open to the idea of maybe changing the flag or not flying the flag at GAA matches. And any number of people were really, really irate at that. There are also any number of people very irate at the notion that in discussion with unionists about a united Ireland, that we should even consider changing the flag, or for that matter, our own name. So I do think that there is a similar sin on the nationalist/Republican side. It's just that it's on a smaller scale, maybe, and not so blatantly obvious.
No, I was thinking of the bigger picture, dude. Why is Boris Johnson bringing every minister you see now on every Tory minister, when there's a press conference, there's 2 or 3 Union Jacks behind him? That used to never happen. Boris, every time he comes out, there's 2 or 3 Union Jacks behind him. They're all pushing this sort of flag waving thing. Now, that to me suggests serious insecurity. I think Brexit, they're no longer secure. And right, there's 2 or 3 things going on. Brexit has really, I think, not worked out as they thought. The union is starting to definitely disintegrate, or at the best, it's become very unstable. Scotland and England have literally almost literally nothing in common. They approach everything from a different viewpoint and a different stance. Northern Ireland, they say that we're as British as Finchley, yet here we have Brexit. The protocol is not the same. The flag rules are not the same, and there's someone else. They're not the same. So, and you notice quite a lot there recently, even insurance products, and you see in brackets, not available in Northern Ireland.
Right. That's right. Yes. What's that company? I'm trying to remember what they're called, but there's that big company we're going to have open. John Lewis, we're going to open here. Or in this place, maybe, and it didn't. But I know for a fact, because I tried to get some stuff from them, and they said, no, it's not available where you are at that address. I'm wondering, because, as you say, Scotland is totally different. And in fact, the Saltire is forever being flown by the SNP. So every time there's a union flag waved in Britain, i.e. England, that's going to alienate the Scots further. Might even alienate the Welsh as well. but it certainly will alienate the Scots. It will alienate, as you pointed out, the people here, the unionists here, because they're not allowed to do it. And you remember the big protest they had about the flag, and they didn't. They sort of lost that one, and now here they're being deprived while all of Britain has gone back. I wonder, is Boris Johnson isn't that dumb, you know? He may actually be playing to the English people.
And that's what he is doing.
The day is coming when the bits of the UK are going to fall off the edge. Yeah.
But I think, Jude, I think this flag waving is all about insecurity, particularly this demand now by the unions, or not the unions, by the Conservatives, that the flag be flown 24/7. Like, there used to be designated days. Now they're going for it. And I think he's trying to do like the Trump thing in America. The Trump people were the whites, the baby boomers, the people born in the 40s. They want America to go back to the old days of white rule and picket fences and mom and apple pie. The Hollywood version of America, not the harsh version of cops shooting people in the streets. Race relations that are soured. All that sort of stuff. They want to go back. And the Trump, what did he do? Trump, he make America great again. And it's all flag waving and patriotism and all that. And when you look at all those people, spot the black face.
Yes, but the point is, it worked. It worked for him getting in for a first term. It nearly worked for him getting in for a second term. I was watching last night, just very briefly, there was a program called something like My Visits with the Queen. It was it the widow maybe of Lord Mountbatten? No, that's not possible, is it? Yeah, could be.
It is the Dowager, whatever you call it.
Dowager, something or another. But there was a scene where the young Queen and several of the royal family appeared in the balcony, and the crowds in London, the way they swarmed and how excited they were, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, it wasn't about we're going to have a better standard of living. It wasn't about we're going to have insurance. It's not about a better economy. It was just we love the Queen. We love the royal. That kind of thing runs very deep, I think.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a similar thing runs maybe not as deep, but it does run through nationalism and republicanism. So flags do matter. If Boris Johnson could get the goodwill and support and sort of energy that he displays from the British people, i.e. the English people in this case, I think he'd be halfway to winning the next election already.
Yeah. Judy, he's playing that card. What is it? You're the academic here, Dr. Collins. I can't remember who was said that patriotism was the last refuge of the scoundrel.
I have no idea.
Was Dr. Johnson or somebody? But there is an element of truth in that, Jude. Every time Trump wasn't bother, he reached for the flag and started preaching the old, America, make America first, make America great again, all that sort of stuff.
But
Hitler done it. By the way, that's the number of people throughout history who have played this card, and every time you look at it, it has not worked out well.
Well, again, let's look at it carefully and not just simply in terms of unionism or, America or wherever. There are people in the South who would get very irate if you suggested that there was going to be a change of flag in order to accommodate unionism.
I'll turn that back on you, Dr. Collins. Would you have any problem if in an event of a settlement, the tricolour was up for grabs and said, right, let's come up with a flag that represents all the people of this island?
None whatsoever. And I would have
hold on, Dr. Collins, would you change the national anthem?
I was about to say that, Pat, before you so
rudely interrupted you. Sorry.
I would have no problem with changing the Ireland of Ain. No problem at all. I don't think it's a particularly good national anthem, even.
No, Dr. Collins, hold on, Dr. Collins. Would you have any objection to the Republic, the unified island rejoining the Commonwealth?
If that's what it took, yeah. I would. I'd rather they didn't. I do feel slightly stronger about joining the Commonwealth than about the other two, but it wouldn't bother me if that's all it was. I mean, if everything else was in place and that was the one stumbling block remaining, yeah, fine. Who gives a damn? It's sort of like the unionists being allowed to maintain their identity, to have British passports, to have all the sort of trappings that they have at present. I'd rather they were full-hearted Irish citizens like myself, but if they're not, well, that's the way we have to deal with it. I would rather not have Stormont as, say, the seat of the Seanad, or as you know, an alternative parliament or whatever. I don't like the idea of a certain number of cabinet seats being reserved for unionists. But again, that's a perfect world. If that's what it took, I'd be open to the idea, and certainly open to discussing it. But are you suggesting you would object to the changing of the national anthem and the changing of the national flag?
No, actually, I'd be all in favour of it. Jude, I have long held a view, and people are going to laugh at this. I think Danny Boy should be our national. I genuinely do, because I'll tell you why. It's an old Irish air. It was first played by a guy called, I think, Blind Wooly McCurdy, I think, something like that. It was noted by Jane Ross, who in Dungiven or Limavady. I think it's Limavady.
Aye.
So everything that you want there, it's ancient, it's cross community, and it speaks of Ireland. I think it's a lovely, you know, they call it the Derry Air or the Londonderry Air, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it was the Londonderry Air originally. The words and
that speaks to everybody, and I think that it's encompassing. It encompasses everything that's good about Ireland. It's beautiful music.
Yeah, I think it's a nice song. I think it's a wee bit. I think I'd like something a wee bit more zip, a little bit more snap.
But I'm batting for that. You know, if it ever comes.
Well,
and I'll ask for the flag. Like, I know if you're talking seriously about United Ireland, there's about 900,000 to 1 million Protestants unionists on this island. You know, if you're not pulling the jeans of flag, you're not really serious about unity, are you?
Well, here's a compromise. I'm not that mad about Danny Boy or the Londonderry Air. I think it's quite nice, but it's a bit wistful, I think, for a national anthem. Why not have Ireland's call?
Bollocks! Absolute.
Why do you say that?
I was about these.
It was written by a dairyman.
I don't give a monkey's. You can shove that as far as you can, and bollocks. It's what anthemic? Is it hell? It's a rugby song sung to placate. No, bollocks. That you can shove that.
I must say I'm impressed by your logical argument, Pat.
No, it's just instinctive. I think it's a Mickey up song that was done it's for rugby, and it does nothing, and I mean nothing for me.
Well, supposing it hadn't been made up for rugby, would you be open to it then?
No, I just don't read it.
Okay, we might have a competition, like for Eurovision. Should the day come, and we could have voting and so on, and then people could break down in tears. Oh, you chose my anthem! You chose my
By the way, you should also remember Paul Coulter wrote "Puppet on a String," so don't go there.
Hey, wow! There's an image for the present. About the public story. Okay, Pat. Thank you very much.
All the best, Jude. Good luck to you.
Enjoy your weekend.